Miles from Earth, the surface of the sun pumps out vast amounts of heat and light into space. Occasionally, huge explosions throw out much more than this. These are solar storms. When these storms hit Earth, they have little effect on living things, but the vast global network that supports our lives can act as a conductor, channeling the destructive energy of the storm and knocking out all electrical power. New York, like the rest of the world, takes technology for granted. Its lifeblood is electricity, and it uses vast amounts of it. 2 or 3 days without it is a nuisance, but months or years is unthinkable.
The loss of power in a massive scale thrusts us back to an era before technology, at a time when we're entirely dependent on it.
The global economy, health systems, communications, and essentials like light and heat would all collapse if, as scientists predict, the Earth is hit by the perfect solar storm.
We just got another 911 about a disturbance in the cemetery. I needed to make a progress report on that. All officers...
It will start with a mysterious object from space, crashing through the atmosphere at 18,000 miles per hour.
Anybody seen that? Did you guys see what I saw? What, guys?
Requesting the patrol supervisor and the fire department to respond to an unknown object. Something really weird is going on here.
But this is only a warning of what is to come. Solar storms are nothing new. Several hit Earth every year. Most are completely harmless, bringing us the northern and southern lights. But our increasing reliance on technology makes us more susceptible to the damage the big ones can cause.
In most natural disasters, it's usually the less developed areas that suffer the biggest impacts. There's a big irony with space weather or geomagnetic storms. It's our sophisticated technology systems that has created this big antenna that couples so well to the space environment and ends up being our undoing.
In 1989, this weakness became painfully evident when the people of Quebec, Canada, were hit by a solar storm.
They went from normal operating conditions to complete blackout of 6 million people in about 90 seconds.
The storm only affected the far north. When the power went out, the accidents increased. With no light and no heat and temperatures just above freezing, Quebec was lucky it only lasted 9 hours. If the right conditions were to align, the perfect storm will be 3 times.
Lost the satellite. Whoa, losing signal.
Global communications are mainly handled by satellites, television, telephones, radio, internet, aircraft, shipping, and defense systems. A worldwide communications breakdown could quickly follow the storm. As the storm disables local networks, like traffic signals, it creates dangerous scenarios on the already packed roads. As power drains from the city, more complex transport systems are thrown into deadly chaos.
There's a question of signaling on trains flipping from a red to a green.
There's no question that a lot of people will not survive the rigors that would accompany a major global blackout. I think there's hope that we'll get through such a thing, but there's also possibility that it won't be very pretty.
Within minutes, the blackout takes hold across New York City, and the rest of the USA is plunged into darkness. Around the world, as electricity stops being generated, the modern world comes to a standstill. In densely populated cities like New York, reaching the top floor of the thousands of high-rise buildings will quickly become a matter of life and death.
Without the elevators to move them up quickly, we're going to have to walk up 20, 30, 40, 50 flights of stairs. The sick, the elderly living on upper floors, people who need dialysis, how we're going to move them.
Emergency services around the world will be taxed to the breaking point. As days turn into weeks and then months, the disaster will only get worse. The supply of food and water will soon stop, and then the real catastrophe will begin.
The water and sewage treatment plants, as both of them start to fail, will create the possibility of diseases and germs affecting the water supply. So we have a continuing cycle of deterioration here, a spiraling downward of the systems that we're dependent on. And so I think we'll eventually see a population that's getting sick and can't get the care they need and needing to go to the hospital, but the hospitals aren't working properly.
Diseases like typhoid and cholera, hepatitis and dysentery will be quick to return. As transformers across New York finally blow, backup generators for utilities like hospitals now kick in, but only for as long as the fuel lasts, usually calculated as being just 3 days.
Very straightforward reality when hospitals' electrical power systems aren't working. The more fragile the patients, the more likely they will not survive. And I hate to be blunt about it, but that's the reality of it.
In this scenario, more than 200 transformers will have been damaged in the U.S. In all likelihood, it could take 2 years to replace them. New transformers will go to the highest bidders, so it could take up to a decade for the poorest countries to get back on their feet.
This massive solar storm will take place someday. The sun is going to do what the sun's going to do. It's going to depend on how well we as mankind can prepare for this situation.
As the blackout continues, the death toll will rise. The solar storm is over, but the global disaster has only just begun.
These transformers can take a year to build under normal circumstances. There are only 5 factories in the US, and the UK, most of Europe, Japan, Canada, and many other countries are in the same boat that